My name is Madison Clark. I am 34, a single mom and an ICU nurse. On New Year's Eve, over what was supposed to be a simple family dinner, my mother made sure I finally understood our relationship would never go back to what it had been. We were halfway through dessert in her pristine new suburban house. The TV was humming in the background, already counting down to midnight. Everyone was doing that forced holiday small talk, pretending to be relaxed. Then my mother pushed back her chair, lifted her glass and announced loud enough for the whole room. "We are not babysitting your kids anymore." The room froze. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. My girls looked from her to me, waiting for the punchline. There was none. She crossed her arms and repeated herself, slower this time, like she was reading from a prepared statement. "No more babysitting. No more late nights. No more being your backup plan." Heat climbed my neck, but my voice was steady. "Seriously, Mom?" Her eyes flashed. "And while we're on it, no more middle-of-the-night drives to the doctor. No more grocery runs. No more repairs. You cannot cut me off and still expect me to be your on-call chauffeur and handyman." Someone at the table cleared their throat. Another stared at their plate. Nobody spoke up for me, so I did the only thing that felt sane. I stood, grabbed my coat, told my girls to put on their shoes, and walked out of that New Year's dinner before the countdown had even started. I thought I was just drawing a line. I did not know that by the next morning my phone would show 48 missed calls, and that one comment I'd leave on one of her posts would flip my entire family upside down. The front door slammed behind us just as someone inside started counting down from 10. I heard the muffled cheer when the ball dropped on TV. Outside it was just cold desert air, and the quiet sound of Haley sniffing while she fought with her zipper. Mom didn't come after us. Neither did Frank. For a moment I just stood next to my car, keys in my hand, wondering if I was really doing this, walking away from the only built-in childcare I had as a single mom who worked nights in an ICU. Then I pictured my girls' faces when she'd said, "No more babysitting," like they were baggage she was finally done carrying. The doubt blew right out of my chest. I buckled them in, climbed into the driver's seat, and started the engine. As my headlights washed over my mom's perfect new lawn and the fresh pavers I'd helped her pick, I thought about how we had gotten here. For months I'd been dragging myself 30 to 40 minutes out of Phoenix after 12-hour shifts to drive her to cardiology appointments, push her through Costco, untangle her insurance and pharmacy issues because those online portals confuse me, honey. I'd spent my rare free weekends in that same yard tearing up old concrete, painting fences, arguing with her HOA so she wouldn't get fined. The arrangement had been simple. I kept her new retired life running smoothly, and in return she watched Haley and Sophie on the nights my schedule went off the rails. Not charity. Not a favor. Family helping family. She turned it transactional the moment she stood up and canceled her side of the deal in front of everyone. Driving out of her subdivision, I caught Haley's eyes in the rearview mirror. She was blinking fast, trying not to cry. "Is Grandma mad at us?" she asked. I swallowed hard and shook my head. "No, baby. Grandma's not mad at you. She's mad at me, and she doesn't know how to say it without hurting other people too." Sophie swung her boots against her car seat. "Did we do something wrong?" I took a breath. "You did nothing wrong. Sometimes grown-ups say mean things because they're tired or jealous or stuck in old habits. That doesn't make them right. My job is to make sure you know you are never a burden to me. Ever." By the time we reached our apartment, the streets were nearly empty, a few stray fireworks popping in the distance. I heated leftover mac and cheese, poured sparkling juice into mismatched mugs, and we watched the replay of the New York countdown on my tiny TV. Haley leaned her head on my shoulder. Sophie curled into my side. We whispered Happy New Year to each other. And it hit me that maybe starting the year with just the three of us wasn't a loss. It was the first clean break from a pattern that had been choking me for years. I just didn't know yet what that break was going to cost my mother. The first sound I heard in the new year was my phone buzzing on the nightstand like it was trying to burrow through the wood. My head was thick from too little sleep. For a second I thought it was the hospital calling me in. I grabbed it, squinted at the screen, and my stomach dropped. 48 missed calls. Mostly from Mom. Some from Frank. A couple from the house phone. A few from a number I recognized as my Aunt Denise. My nurse brain kicked in. Heart attack. Fall. Stroke. Something had happened after we left. I shot upright, already triaging in my head which to drive her to. I called her back. She answered on the second ring. Her voice wasn't weak or slurred. It was tight and furious. You need to come out here, Madison. We need to talk. I exhaled long and slow. Are you okay? Are you in pain? Did something happen to your heart? She sighed like I was being dramatic. I am fine. Just get in the car and come. This cannot wait. She sounded like a supervisor summoning an employee, not a mother trying to fix a fight. I looked at my girls asleep on the pull-out couch, hair everywhere, blankets twisted. Part of me wanted to ignore her, let her sit in what she'd done. Another part knew that if there was some mess already brewing, leaving it alone might only let it spread. I pulled on jeans and a hoodie, left Haley a note in case she woke up, and drove back toward the suburbs with a knot in my stomach that had nothing to do with caffeine. Her street looked exactly like it had the night before. No ambulance. No neighbors. Just that shiny front door. Inside, Mom sat at the dining table, fully made up, hair done, no hospital bracelet. Frank sat beside her with a mug of coffee like a prop. Across from them was Aunt Denise, hands folded, mouth pressed into a thin line. It looked less like a family emergency and more like a disciplinary hearing. I stopped just inside the doorway. So no one's dying? Mom rolled her eyes. Can you not be so dramatic? We called because what you did last night was completely out of line and childish. You embarrassed us in front of everyone and stormed out over one little comment. One little comment, I repeated. You told your grandkids they're basically a burden. That's not little, Mom. Frank cleared his throat. We just think you overreacted. Your mom has done a lot for you. You wouldn't have made it through the divorce without her. Mom straightened, seizing on that. Exactly. After everything your father put you through, who was there babysitting, cooking, helping you find this job, watching those girls all the time? And you repay me by threatening to cut me off from my doctor appointments and groceries, because I finally set a boundary. My jaw tightened. You did not set a boundary. You threw a grenade. You could have pulled me aside any other time and said you needed to scale back. Instead, you made an announcement in front of my kids and half the family like you were giving a toast. Denise shifted. Maggie, she said quietly, you have to admit the way you said it was harsh. Sounded a lot like when you talked to Madison as a kid. Remember, Mom's eyes flashed. Do not start, Denise. This is between me and my daughter. She turned back to me. The point is, you still have responsibilities as my child. I'm older now. I cannot just drive myself to cardiology. I cannot haul groceries alone. You do not get to withdraw all that just because your feelings are hurt. So let me get this straight. I kept my voice flat. You're done watching my kids, but you still expect me to drive 40 minutes whenever you need something, fix whatever breaks, argue with the HOA, manage your online medical stuff. That's not a boundary. That's a one-way street. That is how family works, Mom snapped. Parents take care of children, then children take care of parents. You owe me. The word "owe" hit something raw. Every sleepless drive, every canceled plan, every comment I'd swallow just to keep peace lined up in my mind like receipts. I looked at Denise. She met my eyes and gave the tiniest nod. I see you. I turned back to my mother. No, I do not owe you rides. I do not owe you free labor. I do not owe you my kids' feelings in exchange for your convenience. Last night you made it very clear you don't want to be part of my support system. I believe you. Mom's face went blotchy. So what? You're just going to abandon your mother now that she's old? I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm telling you that starting today, I am not your chauffeur or your handyman. If you need to get to the doctor, call a neighbor, a taxi, Uber, whatever. If something breaks, hire someone. I am done being the only one sacrificing. The room went so silent I could hear the fridge humming. Frank opened his mouth, then closed it. Denise stared at her hands. Mom studied me like I was a stranger. You cannot be serious. Watch me, I said. For the second time in 24 hours, I walked out of that house. This time without my kids as a buffer and without guilt dragging on my heels. Just a cold, clear certainty that I had finally cut the cord she kept jerking. I still didn't know how much that cut was going to cost her. The first few days after that were eerily quiet. I went back to night shifts, to charting and alarms and families pacing ICU waiting rooms. For the first time in months, I wasn't mentally calculating how long it would take to detour through my mom's suburb to drop off groceries or pick up prescriptions. Then the messages started. At first they were brief, almost polite. Madison, I am sorry if I hurt your feelings. Can we talk? Then I missed the girls. Let me see my granddaughters. I stared at my phone between patience, thumbs hovering. She wasn't apologizing for what she'd done. She was apologizing for my reaction. I replied once, short and clear. I am not keeping them from you, but we're taking a break until I know you can be kind to them. That's all. The next morning. Fine, I will babysit sometimes, but you still need to drive me to my appointments. I cannot do all this on my own. There it was again. The deal. The assumption that my time and energy were currency she could bargain with. I didn't answer. Over the week her messages swung like a pendulum. One day. After all I have done for you, this is how you repay me. The next. Do not worry about your old mother. I will manage somehow. I am used to doing everything alone. Then came the calls from relatives who clearly only had her version. Your mom called me crying, one aunt said. She says you told her to handle her health alone. You know she had that heart scare last year. I listened and answered calm. Mom is a grown woman who decided my kids were too much for her. I'm taking her seriously. She can use the same apps I used to get her around. Some understood. Some didn't. Meanwhile, I had to restitch my own life. I talked to a neighbor in my building. Another single mom who worked in the school cafeteria. We set up a trade. She watched Haley and Sophie on my late nights. On my off days, I took her son so she could pick up extra morning shifts. I emailed my charge nurse and shifted a couple of brutal back-to-back nights into something more survivable. I stopped checking my phone on every break, waiting for some new urgent request from my mother. Life felt strange and weightless, like when a cast comes off. About a week later, Aunt Denise texted. Can I swing by this weekend? Something I want to talk about away from your mom. She showed up that Saturday afternoon with a grocery bag of bakery cookies. And that look she gets when she's about to tell the truth no one else wants to say. The girls were in their room painting, so we sat at my tiny kitchen table. She asked about work, the girls, my sleep. Then she sighed. Your mom is spiraling, she said. That company she hired for the backyard and kitchen redo? They're already sending updated invoices. Updated how? Hidden fees, upgraded materials, extra labor. The real number is nowhere near what she bragged about. I fussed with the cookie wrapper. She could have avoided that if she just waited until I had a weekend free. She could have, Denise agreed. But then she'd have to admit she needs you. And I think that scares her more than the bills. I frowned. What does that even mean? She studied me. For years your mom's whole story has been about how hard she had it. Raising you girls alone, putting food on the table. Some of that was real. But it also became her identity. The sacrificial mother. The one everyone praised for suffering while others took from her. Then you come along, single mom, yes, but you get your degree, land this intense nursing job, buy your own car. You show up every time something breaks. You take care of your kids without dumping them on her full time. Little by little, people stop talking about how much she sacrifices and start talking about how strong you are. She loses the spotlight. You're saying she cut off babysitting for attention? I asked. Denise chose her words carefully. I think your mom feels replaced. She doesn't get to be the hero anymore. She doesn't get to say, I'm the only thing standing between Madison and disaster. Watching the girls overnight, that was the last piece she could still hold over you. So when she got resentful and overwhelmed, she ripped it away in the loudest way possible and hoped you'd crawl back on her terms. I thought of every backhanded comment about my schedule. Every time she told someone I worked too much. Every comparison between my girls and perfect little Caleb. The way she stiffened whenever someone complimented me instead of her. I felt bone-deep tired. So what am I supposed to do? Go back and pretend nothing happened so she doesn't feel threatened? Denise shook her head. No. I'm telling you this so you stop thinking you're crazy. You're not overreacting. You're finally stepping out of a role she wrote for you a long time ago. And she's throwing a fit because the script changed. She reached across and squeezed my hand. Let her sit with the consequences. She's the one who wanted to be independent. Remember? Laughter floated from the girls' room. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where my little family didn't revolve around managing my mother's emotions. Somewhere between stale coffee and cookies, I decided I was done running in every time she lit a match. A few days after Denise's visit, a new rhythm settled in. My phone stayed mostly quiet. I almost believed Mom had accepted the new terms. Then a screenshot popped up in our family group chat. It was from her neighborhood Facebook page. Mom standing in front of a half-finished backyard kitchen, concrete dust, exposed pipes, smiling like an HGTV host. The caption read, "New year, new projects, doing this all on our own now. No more waiting on other people to show up." Underneath, her friends cheered her on. So inspiring. So independent. Such a survivor. I stared at it on my lunch break, remembering weekends spent out there in the heat, ripping up pavers while she sat in the shade pointing out Pinterest tiles. She hadn't hired help because she had no one. She'd hired help to prove she didn't need me. Annoying, I thought. Petty. And then the numbers started trickling in. Denise called one night while I was sorting laundry. "Your mom finally showed me the contracts," she said. "Remember that $10,000 quote she bragged about at Christmas? It's closer to 20 now." I put the basket down. "How?" A humorless laugh. The original quote was bare bones. The contractor tacked on upgraded stone, gas lines, a bigger grill, a pergola, lighting. Every time she said yes, it became a change order. Now there are rush fees, extra labor, permit handling. And because she waited until they were already digging to file half the paperwork, the city hit her with fines for starting without permits. Chotu. Double whammy. My chest tightened, not with immediate sympathy, but with the sick, familiar feeling of watching someone steer into a ditch. "You pointed out. Why didn't she call me when they brought the contract?" I asked. "I could have gone through it. Because that would mean admitting she needed you," Denise said. "Right now she'd rather bleed money than give you that win." Over the next week, the story mutated through the family. A cousin mentioned Mom had asked to borrow $500 until the inspections clear up. My grandmother let slip that Maggie had cried on the phone about having no one to help her. How her ungrateful daughter had left her to be eaten alive by contractors. Ungrateful daughter. The same label she'd slapped on me since I was a teenager every time I wanted something for myself. Only this time there were contracts with her signature, not mine. One afternoon between shifts I met Denise at a coffee shop near the hospital. A manila folder sat on the table between us. She slid it over. "I told her I shouldn't," Denise said. "But she insisted I look. You might as well see it too." Inside. The original $10,000 estimate. The revised total just under $22,000. A red stamped notice from the city listing code violations. A stern letter from the HOA threatening penalties if certain structures weren't fixed within 30 days. My mother's signature on every page. My jaw clenched. This is her mess. "It is," Denise agreed. "And she's already trying to spin it like it happened because you weren't there." That stung more than the numbers. Same old pattern. Her choices, my responsibility. Only this time I couldn't fix it with a weekend of sweat and a few phone calls. Debt is debt. Late permits are late permits. Contractors who smell desperation don't magically grow scruples because a tired ICU nurse glares at them. For a second, I pictured myself driving out there anyway. Ripping through the contract, bullying the project manager into cutting the bill. I saw myself throwing every ounce of my energy into saving her backyard, so she wouldn't have to sit in the ruins of her pride. Then I saw Haley's face when I canceled movie night. Sophie asking why Grandma could hurt her feelings and still get everything she wanted. I closed the folder and slid it back. "I'm not getting involved." Denise searched my face, then nodded. "Good. She needs to learn consequences aren't just for everyone else." Later that week, Mom finally called me directly. I was on my break. Her voice was thick, practiced. "I hope you're happy," she said, skipping a greeting. "That company is robbing us blind. If you had been here, this never would have happened." I took a breath. "If you'd waited and talked to me before signing anything, I'd have warned you. You chose to do it without me. That was your decision. Now you have to deal with the fallout." She scoffed. "So that's it? You're going to sit in your little apartment while your mother drowns in debt? Because you're mad I said no to babysitting." I stared at the vending machine in front of me, all those neat rows of snacks. For years, I'd been her emergency exit every time smoke started rising. But I wasn't the one lighting the matches. I'm not sitting back, I said quietly. I'm working, paying my bills, taking care of my kids. I am not responsible for contracts I did not sign. Silence. For once, she didn't have a quick comeback. When she hung up, my hands shook. Under the old fear and guilt, something else surfaced, something close to relief. Let her find out what independence really feels like, I thought. The way she bragged about it online. Let her learn what it's like when there's no one left to clean up but the person who made the mess. 2 weeks passed before she tried a new tactic. The guilt rage messages stopped. One afternoon at work, a text popped up that actually made me stop. Madison, I know I said things I should not have. I was stressed and took it out on you and the girls. Can we please meet and talk like adults? I read it 3 times in the supply closet. For the first time, there was no but tacked on, no immediate pivot to everything I'd done wrong. I didn't fully trust it, but I also knew these windows with her were rare. I typed, short coffee. Public place. No arguing in front of the girls. She agreed almost too quickly. We met on a Sunday afternoon at a cafe halfway between her suburb and my apartment. I got there early and sat by the window, hands wrapped around a mug that had already gone cold. When she walked in with Frank trailing behind her, she looked smaller somehow, not physically, but like someone had punctured the balloon she lived in. She sat across from me, eyes bright above an untouched coffee. I'm sorry, she said immediately. The words sounded foreign in her mouth. For what? I asked. I wasn't going to let her skate on sorry you're upset. For the way I said things at dinner. For embarrassing you in front of the girls. For saying they were too much. She stared at the table on the last part, but she said it. Frank nodded. It wasn't our best moment. That hurt them, I said. Haley asked if Grandma was mad at her. Sophie wanted to know what she did wrong. They heard you, Mom. They're not deaf. Her face crumpled for a second, the way it used to when we were little, and she realized she'd gone too far. I never meant to hurt them, she whispered. I felt cornered. Everyone talking about how strong you are, how you do everything alone. I used to be the one people said that about. Now it's like I'm invisible unless something's wrong with my heart or my bills. There it was, what Denise had tried to translate for me. Straight from my mother's mouth. You think I'm taking your place, I said slowly. She shook her head, then nodded, then shook it again. I think I spent 30 years sacrificing, and then suddenly you're the one everyone's impressed by. You're the hero now. It's stupid, I know. But it feels like there's no room for me unless I'm needed. Frank cleared his throat. She's been struggling since she retired, he said. She doesn't say it right, but she's scared. Scared of what? I asked. Of not matching, he said. That answered questions I hadn't known how to word. I understand being scared, I said. I understand feeling invisible. I felt that way my whole life around you. Her eyes snapped up. That's not fair. Maybe it wasn't, but it was true. If we were finally doing honesty, we were doing all of it. Here's where I'm at, I said. I am done twisting my life into knots to keep you comfortable. I'm done driving after 12-hour shifts to do things you can pay someone else to do. I'm done letting my kids get hurt because of how you feel about your own life. If you want a relationship with me and with them, it has to be different. She stiffened. Different how? I held up one finger. One, you do not call my kids a burden, too much, or anything like that ever again, not even as a joke. If you're overwhelmed, say you're overwhelmed. But you don't dump that on them. Second finger. 2. Babysitting is not a bargaining chip. If you're too tired or don't want to, you say no. If you say yes, you do it without keeping score. That's the only way this works. Third. 3. I'm not your chauffeur or handyman anymore. I will help when I truly can and when I choose to, not because I've been guilt into it. You have options: friends, neighbors, church people, ride services. Use them. She opened her mouth, probably to say that's not how family works, then saw my face and shut it. Frank spoke instead. That sounds reasonable. Maggie, we can figure out other ways to get around. Our lives can't depend on Maddie being on call forever. Mom stared at her hands. So what do I get? She asked quietly. You get chances to be a grandmother, I said. Not by right, by choice. If you can respect those boundaries, if you can be consistently kind to my daughters, I'll bring them over sometimes. They can bake with you, watch movies, plant flowers, whatever. But if you cross those lines, I'll pull back. No big blow-up. No screaming. I'll just be done. The words hung between us. She didn't argue. She sat still for a long moment, then gave one sharp, small nod. I'll try, she said. It wasn't a promise or a miracle, but it was more accountability than I had ever heard from her. We finished our coffees in uneasy small talk, school, work, weather. When I got up to leave, she hugged me fast and stiff like she wasn't sure if she was allowed. Driving home, I braced for the familiar wave of guilt for having been so firm. It never came. Instead, there was a thin, fragile sense of peace. We hadn't fixed much. We just built a fence around the damage and agreed, for now, not to cross it. I let the girls decide about visits. When Haley said she was ready to see Grandma again, I took them for a short Sunday afternoon visit. I stayed the whole time and left before anyone got overtired. For a while, it looked like this new version of family might actually work. What I didn't know was that my mother was still gripping her old script in the one place I hadn't checked yet: online. It started with a notification I almost ignored. Someone had tagged me in a post in our private family Facebook group. Mom had posted a selfie of her and Frank in front of the finished backyard kitchen. Warm lights, glowing, stone counters scrubbed clean. The caption: "After a rough year, we finally did it. All on our own. No help, no handouts, just two old folks figuring things out without relying on anyone." Sometimes you realize you raised your kids to be so independent they forget family. Relatives were already in the comments, praising her strength, talking about how she'd always sacrificed the most. Same story, new platform. Abandoned mother, ungrateful daughter. Only this time I could literally see the lie. I thought about letting it slide. Then I remembered Haley's face when Mom called my kids. Too much. The 48 missed calls. The way she tried to drag me back into the rescuer role over the contractor mess. My hand stopped shaking. I opened my photos and pulled up a picture of me covered in dust, ripping up her old backyard. Then a screenshot of our old text thread where she'd laid out the arrangement herself. "If you help us get this place fixed up, we'll watch the girls whenever you need. Family takes care of family." Under her post, I commented with the two images and wrote, "The yard looks amazing, Mom. Just to be clear, it wasn't done all on your own. I spent months driving out after 12-hour ICU shifts to tear up concrete, deal with your HOA, and help pick materials. You offered babysitting in return. When you stood up on New Year's and said you were done watching my kids, you ended that deal. I chose not to fix the rest because you made it clear you didn't want me as family, just as free labor. I wish you had told the whole story here." I hit post and set my phone down. Notifications exploded almost immediately. Denise liked my comment. My cousin Monica, the one with Caleb, added that she'd heard the same agreement from my mom months earlier. Someone dropped a screenshot of the whole thread into the larger Reed family group. That's when people really started speaking up. My grandmother wrote that Mom had borrowed money, saying no one would help her, without mentioning she'd pushed me away. One uncle reminded everyone this wasn't the first time she'd refused advice, then wanted rescuing. Monica asked her publicly to stop comparing her perfect son to my girls. No one called her names. They just stopped pretending they couldn't see the pattern. For once, I didn't jump in to smooth things over. I just watched as my mother's favorite narrative cracked in front of the audience she'd always played to. Mom deleted her post and messaged me. "I hope you're satisfied. You turned my family against me." I wrote back, "I didn't turn them against you. I just stopped covering for you. What they do with the truth is up to them." Later, Denise told me Grandma had quietly paused the financial help she'd been sending my mother for years. "Maybe it's time Maggie lives with her own choices," she'd said. A few relatives removed Mom from smaller chats she dominated. No dramatic exile, just a slow, steady pulling back. That night, after I tucked the girls into bed, I left the family group myself and turned off notifications. Instead, I answered messages from the people who actually showed up for us: the neighbor who traded childcare, the coworker who swapped shifts, the moms who offered rides. Sitting on my worn couch in the dim light, I realized this was the only kind of revenge I wanted. I had told the truth once in public. Then I refused to step back into the role that had been killing me. I chose boundaries over guilt. My daughter's safety over my mother's comfort. If there's a lesson in any of this, it's that you don't owe your silence to anyone, even a parent, when they are hurting you or your kids. Being family is not a free pass to be cruel. Sometimes the most powerful family revenge is simply walking away from the toxic script, building something healthier with the people who actually care, and letting the ones who tried to break you live with the fact that you turned out okay without them.